Thank you, Chairman Adolph. And before I start, it has been an honor serving with you for these many years. Secretary Albright, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Representative.
How you doing?
Good.
There you go. That's all you can ask. Spring training right around the corner. Hope springs eternal.
Yes. Through the weekend, my team was yet to win a spring training game, so we'll hope things get better.
Sir, we went 20 years without a winning team. We're okay. I'd like to reach out to our friends across the aisle. I was not born in a row house, but my dad is, as we affectionately refer to, a mill hunk. I did not have a silver spoon in my mouth. It was low-carbon stainless. He made it. Anyway, last year, Mr. Secretary, if you recall, we did some talking about energy, which is very, very important to central western Pennsylvania. A few days ago, we had the DEP Secretary, Mr. Quigley, in here talking about how the Clean Power Act is going to affect Pennsylvania. And he mentioned to us something that you and I had spoken about last year, the alternative energy portfolio standards and increasing production. The Clean Power Plan, which is federal, has already forced closure of about 6 of our coal-fired plants and removed 4 gigawatts of electricity from our grid. Secretary Quigley seems to think we can fill that 4 gigawatt hole through alternative energy portfolio methods. In doing the math into windmill generation and to solar panel generation, Mr. Quigley's numbers aren't quite consumer friendly, whereas a windmill or solar panel generates a kilowatt hour at roughly $72 per kilowatt hour, whereas coal, natural gas, or nuclear are down in the $11 and $12 range. Now, when I asked the Secretary how we were going to make up, and I'm bringing it all around to you, it's budgetary, trust me. When we brought it all around, I said, you can't possibly hope to generate that much electricity from alternative energy portfolio. Means they simply do not perform like that. We have a decade to prove it. He said we were going to bring gas plants online. We currently don't have any permitted. But I noticed, and this is where it pertains to you, Mr. Secretary, I noticed within your budget, or the governor's budget proposal, is a 6.5% severance tax. I was wondering if we could talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
I see in your projection, you're saying for next year, you're projecting gas selling at 221 a million cubic feet in MCF.
I thought those price projections really moved from about $1.50 to $1.70 something. But I'm happy to go back and take another look at that to be clear.
Sure. I'm not trying to be sticky with you, but I'm looking at it right here. You're projecting for this year.
Volume, and we do expect some decline in volume, but we still do expect volume production to maintain in excess, I think, of 4 trillion. Cubic feet, so
cubic feet, right? MCF. That's an awful lot of natural gas. Now, the price of this, which I would not debate with you, is not anywhere close to $1.71 an MCF. This morning, it was selling at 92 cents. Now, if we are going to put up gas-fired electrical generation and use those great reserves of gas we have stored in anticlinal domes under the state right now, how is that going to affect your budget scenario in that we're at 92 cents, you're thinking next year it's going to go to 221. I just don't know how we collect revenue on something that's nowhere close to the projection.
Well, again, as I alluded to earlier, spring update changes always make adjustments. At the time that we did our budget, those were the best estimates. We use global insights. We use the best information that's available to us to project our best estimates about where markets will be. We work with others outside of the governor's budget office, conferring with the independent fiscal office and anybody else we can talk to make the best estimates. Those were the best estimates available to us when our budget proposal was put together in January. We will revise, with any necessary changes through our spring update, probably sometime in the month of May, any appropriate changes. But we do believe that market and that those prices will begin to fluctuate upward. Part of that is all about pipelines in Pennsylvania as well, that's a process that we need to also, address together cooperatively. But again, if adjustments are necessary, we will work with the General Assembly and communicate what we think are the most recent and best estimates.
So, okay, I'll buy your rationale, but my question is, if it's currently selling at 92 cents an MCF, and I've got the number right in front of me for 2017 or 2016, you're projecting 171. For 2017, you're projecting 208. If the price of gas continues to fall, as it has been for about a year, and we do not achieve $1.71 per MCF, which is what your revenue collection model is based upon, is it a structural deficit, the difference between what you've projected and what it's actually selling for?
It's
I'm asking.
a structural deficit. It would mean that the revenue forecasts that we've made, and this will affect, both the impact fee collections that are tied to price, as well as as our severance tax proposal. Let me simply say, to go back and put our proposal itself in context, we did try to listen, as you had alluded to already from our dialogue from last year. We had a much different structured tax proposal last year that included a volume component. We took that out so that we could be completely transparent, or it was easier to explain the competitiveness of the tax plan that we put before the General Assembly, and so it was clear that it was very competitive and consistent with the taxes that all other producers currently have in place. The 6.5% tax that we propose is actually lower than the tax, for example, that our largest producer, Texas, has in place now. We are the second largest gas producer. And we also will not touch in any way the current impact fee. We'll let that impact fee in place and simply allow the folks that pay the tax to receive a full credit for the amount of the impact fee they pay against the severance tax that we put in place, so that would be so that the new revenue generated would be a net of that delta. Okay,
we on Approps actually figured out what the local impact fee worked out to percentage-wise, and it's anywhere between 4.2 and 4.4. What you're projecting at 6.5 is the difference between 6.5 and that number I just
that would be the net revenue.
Sir, have we seen any decline in personal income tax collections from gas royalties being down?
We have what we have seen is declining receipts from our own royalty payments. I alluded to earlier the adjustments we had to make for the collections in the oil and gas fund, not just from gas royalties, but also in our timber industry that also provides royalties to that fund. So yes, we've seen some downward turn, but we believe that the future's still bright. When you talk about, all of our energy sectors in Pennsylvania, we're still a strong believer that frankly, Pennsylvania can become and remain an energy leader in a number of sectors. And we believe that while short-term there is price fluctuation that we're going to have to deal with, in the long term, those prices will recover. Part of that, again, is all about pipelines as well as what's happening in the larger energy markets. But we believe that future still looks bright.
You mentioned the forest, Chairman, may I? You mentioned the forest, and that is owned pretty much by Pennsylvania and the Game Commission. Do we have any new drill starts going on up in the forest right now that might help us generate more revenue?
No.
Good answer. Actually, the number of rigs has fallen from over 300 to about a dozen now. I don't think we're going to realize this money. But thank you for your time, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Representative.